Twitter at Scary Things Pod, and follow us on Facebook as well. Also, check out our website at www.wherethescarythingsare.com. I'm your host with the most, the one, the only, Monster Mash Ken, and with me is my co-host, the Mistress of Darkness, the Queen of Fright, the Lady of the Night, Muse. How you doing tonight, lady?
I'm good. Halloween was a few days ago. My husband's birthday was on the 1st. So kind of like a little
Oh.
short, funny story. My husband was actually supposed to be born on Halloween, but it's just like him to like wait till November 1st because he doesn't want to deal with anything horror. So I was like, he just would not come out till November 1st. So I was just like, yeah, we know you're pure evil. It doesn't matter.
He deals with you. That's the horror in that,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Oh
Exactly.
man. Well, a man that knows no horror shame is Chris the Creature ZC. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm feeling really good, and I'm kind of excited. In a couple days from now, I'm going to head out west in a car and visit my son in the Midwest. He's in law school out in Kansas, and my next two shows, I'll be doing them from the road, and I always like doing that. So I'm doing wonderful.
Yeah, we're very jealous of you.
Oh,
But
come with me.
somebody I'm very jealous of is Horo from PromoteHorror.com. What's up, my friend?
Oh man, well I'm a little exhausted because I had to stand in line all day because this guy over here, let's see if we can get him in view because he's struggling here. Dexter hasn't voted in years, and if you can see right there, he's got his voter sticker on. So yeah, I
All
voted by
right,
mail,
Dex.
but he insisted on going and standing in line. So of course he needed me to hold him up there. So yeah, we had fun all day out
Oh,
there.
he needed a little support, I'm sure. Moral support.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, I got to be honest with you guys. I scarfed down a sushi roll really quick because I was so hungry and I'm a little sick. So if I'm winded, I forgive me. But yeah, I got this really bad cold and got the sniffles and whatnot. But I will make sure that mute button is handy. And I'm really excited to get into this show tonight. Our guest is somebody that's really, really cool in a movie that I'm really excited to watch. We're going to be talking about The Dark and the Wicked. Michael Abbott Jr. will be joining us. He's one of the main actors from the film. I trust Horo and his recommendations because he has not been wrong yet. And he is just raving about this movie. If you follow him on Twitter and PromoteHorror.com, he thinks this is the one to watch this year. And the way he talks about it, I'm super excited. Unfortunately, Muse, Chris, and I did not get to watch the movie yet. It does come out, I believe, this week. So by the time you hear this, you should go and watch it on demand or however it's going to be available. I believe it's going to be in theaters, right, Horo? I think they're going to limited release it.
It is going to have a limited release, and I believe my understanding is it will be on Shutter at some point. I think maybe this week. I'm a little confused about the Shutter release. Maybe Michael knows. I believe the Shutter release might be just Canada to start, and then maybe come here later. But I believe it will be on Shutter at some point.
Yeah, I'm just super excited about it, and I can't wait to get into the interview. But as always, we have great stuff for you. So we'll be talking to Michael in about an hour or so, and we're going to kick things off with the Fear the Beer of the Week as well as a horror movie flashback. So, tell you what I'm drinking tonight. This is awesome can. This is called Psycho Simcoe. It's an India Pale Ale. Let's see if you guys can see that. It's got like this cool zombie looking guy in like a orange jumpsuit or a straight jacket. It's a straight jacket. Can you see that? That's pretty cool. Let's try it. That's a little bit too IPA-ish for me. It's got a nice taste at the end, but it's 7.6 volume. This is a pint. This is from Three Threes Brewery in Hamilton, New Jersey. So that's here in New Jersey. Wow. But I like my cover art on my beer. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I'm gonna do it this time. And I got a good movie for you guys that came out this week in 1976. Carrie. This one was directed by Brian De Palma. We all know him. Stephen King novel, of course. This one was Sissy Spacek, John Travolta, Nancy Allen, Piper Laurie. A lot of great actors here. I remember watching. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but there was a point in time I just felt like it was always on TV, like TBS or TNT or something like that. So I'd always watch it, right? And obviously, if you have spoiler alert, the end scene is really scary. That was like the scariest part of the movie, in my opinion. And when what's her name, Piper, um, gets her or something grabs her arm. It's the mom out of the grave, right? Uh, that always scared me. Obviously, the pig's blood with John Travolta and dropping that on them and whatnot on Carrie. And this was a good movie. Definitely check it out. I'm sure if you're listening to this show, you've probably seen this movie already. It's a classic. It's one of the probably top 10 horror movies of all time. A lot of mimics there. I think they remade it not too long ago with what's her name, Chloe Moritz, whatever her name is. But I didn't check that out because I'm not really big on the remakes of classics. So yeah, that's my horror movie flashback, Carrie. And the beer of the week is Psycho Simcoe India Pale Ale from Three Threes Brewery. Yeah, so I'm going to pass it on over to Muse with the Sinister Six.
All right. So, like Ken just mentioned, we did not get to watch this film. I am also looking forward to it. It sounds fantastic, terrifying, all that kind of stuff. But I do believe it takes place in a farm setting or a rural setting, countryside. So I thought it would be fun to run down my Sinister Six frightening farms or creepy countryside, whatever you want to call it. Fields of Scream, whatever it is. I stole that from somebody, but I can't take credit for that last one. But I saw a funny article about that, and that's kind of like what they referred to their list as. But I was going to run down my top six and then swing back around to you guys and ask you if you had any favorite horror movies that took place on a farm, country setting, somewhere isolated. I guess you could kind of go with that as well. We'll be flexible. So the first one is a pretty obvious one and one most of us have seen, and it's Children of the Corn. And we all know this was adapted from the Stephen King novel. God, this movie scared the crap out of me as a kid. I mean, I still don't like isolated towns. I see cornfields, and it's always, I keep hearing that. Keep hearing Aunt Malachi shouting "Outlander" and all kinds of stuff. And we know Linda Hamilton is in this one. Her and her boyfriend are going through the town of Gatlin, or they get turned around rather, and they run afoul of these demonic children, and they're obviously there's something sinister going on in this town. As the movie unfolds, we start to learn more about the story, and we start to realize there's a lack of adults around. First of all, children are basically on their own, which is really alarming because the first thing you're wondering is who's watching these kids, and they all seem to be taking care of themselves until they run across Isaac and Malachi, who obviously are the two ringleaders here in the group. And they are worshiping this demonic entity known only by the name He Who Walks Behind the Rose. And this has got one of the coolest end scenes, of course, in the cornfield. Everything climaxes there. I don't want to ruin too much for anybody that did miss this one. If you did not see this one, I don't even know how in the world you've missed this one, because this is a pretty well-known Stephen King film. But if you did, go back and try to find this one. It may be streaming on Tubi. I don't know. I know there's still a lot of Halloween movies available and stuff. So I imagine this is streaming for free somewhere. So that is, but I loved Courtney Gaines in this one. He scared me to death as Malachi. And of course, Isaac, the shorter dude there, scared me too. But there was something about Malachi's character that really freaked me out. So that is my first movie. The second movie is another one that terrified me in my childhood and still makes me wary of scarecrows to this day. And it is Scarecrows from 1988. And I couldn't find a really major synopsis for this one, other than criminals, I guess, hijack a plane. They're kind of like mercenaries, and they force the pilot and his daughter to fly them to Mexico. However, an unexpected landing finds them in I guess you could say this area, this cornfield, or I guess you could say they say it's a cemetery, but I remember it as a cornfield. But it's inhabited by killer scarecrows. I mean, these scarecrows look like scarecrows, but they actually are infused with this demonic. They're possessed by these evil spirits. And I remember renting this movie when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. They had this convenience store at the end of our street, and they used to rent out videos back in the day. It was kind of like a little mini area for like videotapes. And I remember begging my mom to rent this one. She finally gave in after about a week, and I was scared to death. I still do not, I can't look at Scarecrows the same way. I still look sideways at them because of this movie. It just really, even today, is just weirds me out. This is a really great movie. And I think it's streaming on Prime Video. If you have a subscription, I would definitely encourage everybody to watch this one. This is a really fun, rural countryside, out in the country type of horror movie. And it's just freaks. The scarecrows are done really, really well. A lot of great practical effects in this one as well. The third movie is by one of our very good friends, and he has been on the show at Harrison Smith, and it's The Fields from 2011. And I'm not going to give too much away here, but it centers around a menacing presence in a cornfield that terrorizes a boy and his family at their isolated farmhouse. And I'm not sure, but I'm almost positive that it is a semi-autobiographical thing that happened to Harrison when he was a boy. So I'm sorry, Harrison, if I got that wrong, but I have seen this one. It's got Cloris Leachman is awesome in this. It's got Tara Reid as well. This is streaming on Tubi, so you guys go and check this one out. Such a great movie. I believe Chris the Creature has talked about this one as well. If you've missed this one, you got to go check this out. It's streaming on Tubi. Came out in 2011, The Fields. Go check this one out. The fourth movie is one of our good friend Dismay's favorites, I believe, and it's Motel Hell from 1980. And this takes place out kind of like in a rural area as well. And it centers around the character of Vincent Smith, played by Rory Calhoun, and his sister Ida. They run this rural hotel, but they earn most of their cash operating a food stand that specializes in world-famous sausages. So you can just imagine where this is going. And so after years of success, however, the duo's upstanding brother, Sheriff Bruce, eventually discovers the grotesque details of his siblings' booming business. Vincent and Ida are actually plumping up their hotel patrons, killing and dismembering them and grinding them into frankfurters. So this is a really fun early 80s film. I know there's some out there that have not seen this one. I cannot stress enough, you have got to find this one. I'm not sure. I think it's streaming on Prime as well, Amazon Prime. This is a really fun movie. It's definitely got the 80s cheesiness, but it's so good. It's so good. It's definitely worth the watch if you can find it, or if you don't have Amazon Prime, I'm sure you could probably find it for free somewhere else as well. But definitely a lot of fun. And my fifth movie is Pumpkinhead. Obviously, this is another movie that made me really, really, whenever there's like an isolated area we're going out to, and I just see like some lonely old general store, I think of Pumpkinhead, because we know this centers on Lance Henriksen's character here, he has a son who dies in a hit and run accident, and he's playing the great character of Ed Harley. So obviously he seeks revenge against these teenagers. They're out there on their dirt bikes, and unfortunately his little boy gets killed chasing their dog. The family dog goes out there, and he's chasing the dog down because he's worried about the dog getting hit. He gets hit in the process. So Ed Harley is not pleased, and I don't blame him. But he ends up going to the local witch in town, who nobody wants anything to do with, but they all know where she's at. And there's kind of a memorable scene where one of the kids in the town actually helps Ed to find her location, but he'll only go part way with him. And so he makes a deal with the witch, but he discovers after the deed has been done that there's this bond between himself and the creature, and he begins to have second thoughts about employing this vicious monster, and he fights to end Pumpkinhead's murderous rampage before it's too late. So no spoilers on the ending here, but it's a really, really great movie. I know most of us have seen it, but I had to mention that one when you talk about countryside or rural settings as well. And the last one is a Clive Barker masterpiece, Rawhead Rex, 1986. This movie, I love this movie so much. I don't even have enough time to tell you how much I love this movie. This is actually also based on a short story by Clive Barker, and is featured in, I believe, volume 3 of one of his books of blood. So takes place in the Irish countryside. I believe there's a man there that's an historian on antiques, and he's travels to this countryside area out in Ireland, and somehow, some way, Pumpkinhead gets, not Pumpkinhead, but Rawhead Rex gets conjured up. There's like a lightning storm. He's coming out of the ground. It's just got so many glorious, 1980s horror movie moments. The monster is crazy cool looking, great practical effects in this one. A lot of blood, a lot of gore, some very memorable moments. This movie is another one that scared the crap out of me as a kid. So still actually kind of scares me a little bit. Some might scoff at that, but this one kind of weirds me out. I think it's the creature design, but I loved it. And it's Clive Barker, so it's instant gold for me. So that's my top six frightening farms, countryside creepiness, terrifying fields of scream, and whatever you want to say. So I'm going to swing around to Chris this time because I know he's got at least one really cool horror movie that takes place on a farm.
Yeah, I'll get to that one third. One isn't a horror movie, but it was horrific. And I don't know if you guys have seen it. Robert Blake was in it, and before Beretta. In Cold Blood. It's a Truman Capote book of a farmer and his family, pillars of the community in Kansas, are brutally murdered in their farmhouse one night. And this is the true story of tracking down the two killers. It'll give you nightmares, even though technically it's a crime drama and not a horror movie. It is quite horrific. Another one, our good friend Debbie Rochon was in this movie. It's a farm in Italy during World War II in Color of Darkness, when there is something very mysterious in the well, and it comes out and bad things happen to the entire family, their friends, their extended friends, their dogs, the entire country of Italy and Europe. It just spreads. It's very vicious. And then a movie that I'm going to talk more about in a little while. Those of you who love early 1970s drive-in will recognize Invasion of the Blood Farmers. It takes place in rural New York, and the blood farmers come to town, and they want your blood, and you'll never guess why. And what they do to the blood, it might be food for even another horror movie, but I'm going to talk more about Invasion of the Blood Farmers in a few minutes. So those are the three that come right to mind.
I'll jump in. We had a couple good movies on our show. The Shed kind of had that farm rural vibe, and also, what was the one that we did from the Netflix? And they were in the green fields, and Patrick, what's his name, was in it. God damn, what was the name
The
of
tall
it?
grass. The
It's like
tall grass.
the tall grass. Yeah, that was kind of very rural. Those were the two that popped up in my head. Obviously, Muse, you had the Children of the Corn is like probably one of the most famous ones. But what
Yeah.
about you, Horo? What are you thinking?
I got a couple of them, and maybe some. Well, let me start with one you probably know, and that's Jeepers Creepers. I know, maybe that
Oh
the
yeah,
setting kind of changes here and there, especially in the first and second one, but overall originates from the gentleman on the farm, and that one you might know. And then some of the others, well, you might know Black Sheep. That's another one. I think that was a foreign movie, if I remember right. And then another one called The Barn. This is more of an indie film made a couple of years ago, and I believe there's going to be a sequel to it. And it's kind of a slasher. It was a fun flick. And another one that was that's a couple of years old is actually called The Farm, and it's about cannibalism. If you watch that one, you'll see some themes of some other familiar movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is also on a farm, I guess. And but then comes to a very horrific ending. A little bit of a different kind of movie with some familiar themes, but maybe some stuff that you guys haven't seen in the last couple of years.
I was looking at The Barn, and it's actually one I actually look to watch. And I think I've heard of a few of the other ones as well, but I think The Barn was streaming for free, so that actually caught my eye. And I love the cover art on the movie; it was kind of cool too. So some great choices, guys. So that is my Sinister Six for Frightening Farms. So I'm going to pass it
back
to
over to me.
pass back over to
I
to
want to
Ken.
talk.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to say like
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I think that it's a cool concept to talk about because, we talk about attics and haunted houses and stuff like that, but there's always stuff that happens in like rural America, in these farm countries. It's so open. And obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
My brain is not all the way here, so I'm glad Horo's here to pick these things up. And Chris always talks about these such obscure movies that I've never even heard of. But great list, Muse. Great topic. I'm going to pass it on over to Horo and Dexter for the Promote Horror Rundown.
Yes, Dexter's on my side here, sliding him over because he brought his toy. I don't know why, but he's always got to have something with him, and it's a little dangerous. So you're gonna have to go over there, and while I do this, because I can't keep an eye on you while I'm doing this. Um, Let me. Okay, I was gonna, but I'll wait. I'll wait. We can. There's a little bit of an interesting thing I just saw on Twitter, but I'll let it. I'll tease you guys. I'll wait to the news to do that. We'll go ahead and do the usual um, routine here with the remakes. Um, so on Halloween night, my wife wanted to kind of end the night. It wasn't the best Halloween ever, but she wanted to end the night and watch a certain movie. Um, this is a movie that I'm going to say that she likes more than I do. Not to say anything bad. A lot of horror fans like this movie, but I was kind of thinking about it. Well, we kind of started talking about how old it is, um, and what its anniversary was, and I was kind of thinking of why it hadn't had a remake by now. Obviously, there's some of the easiest reasons because it is a classic, it is a cult film. There was actually a remake, if you want to be technical about it, a couple of years ago on Fox, but it was, it's a TV kind of remake, which I don't really count totally. Um, but it's a popular film that's been redone in other ways. It's been on Broadway. People shadowcast it. It's been in theaters. They show it annually all the time. Um, any guess to what I'm talking about, guys? Any guess?
Is it a mainstream movie or is it something kind of
It's
low?
I think I
it's
know it.
it's more of a cult thing, but I mean, it's
The
got a huge horror following. I
like
guess
the
I guess it's got a select. Yeah,
like
say it. Say it.
Rocky Horror?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Screw
okay.
that.
That's
There
what
you
I
go.
was guessing. Yep.
Don't
There you
copy
go.
me. Don't
No,
copy.
we're in the same brain, remember?
Yeah.
So yeah, Rocky Horror. Very interesting film there. I'm kind of interesting, and I guess I'll jump to Chris later. When I kind of wrap this up, kind of interested on his point of view because he starred in the movie probably,
Probably.
and he saw it at a time, actually when it came out, unlike some of the rest of us.
Can I just
To,
say something real quick? So in New York, they have I think they have a screening of it and down in Chelsea, and Chelsea is a really big LBG. I can never say that all right, but you know where I'm getting at, LBGQT, uh, and the costumes there, everybody dresses up to watch it. It's really cool. Like if I were, I think I've only seen it once, but I would watch it in that community. Like I think that would be the way to see it with everybody there. So it is still very much alive and very much kicking. Obviously not right now with COVID and whatnot, but I think like next year when it opens back up, it's probably a spectacle to go see.
yeah, it is, and kind of thinking about, the reason I bring this up, is we talk about remakes in different ways. And, the reason I'm bringing this up is, why hasn't there been really a remake of this? Besides for the Fox version, which again, I don't really count that. I mean, that was TV. I know they did it again, but whatever. But that's another reason why they didn't do it is because it's basically done every year. I know around here, several theaters show it at least once a year. Some theaters are a little bit loose and they let people either dress up. Um, they let people commentate during. One of the things that Rocky Horror is this whole thing where people shout back at the screen. And I still to this day don't really understand it. Maybe Chris can fill us in on the history of that. I have no idea. But there's this whole thing where people have lines and shout back at the screen, and they know it verse by verse and everything, and I don't. So it's a little confusing. Um, but it's fun. It's all in the fun of it, and it's part of why it makes it a cult classic. And all these different reasons are why maybe it hasn't been remade. And Halloween Horror Nights, which I love to go to for years, they did their own version of it, live on stage there, and it was really fun. And again, everybody's they're yelling back at the characters, through the entire thing, and everybody loves, of course, dancing to the time warp. That seems to excite everybody, and so it's those kind of things that I think make it hard to do a remake of. But in case anybody out there is not familiar, maybe if we have some newer horror fans listening here, basically this was done in 1975. It's basically kind of an easy horror setup, at least at the beginning. A couple's on the side of the road, they break down, they end up at a really strange dude's house, Dr. Frankenfooter or something like that, and as soon as they go in, it just gets weirder and weirder. And, just to, let you guys, some of you know, if you're not familiar with it, this is musical horror. So there's a lot of song and dance in it. Musical horror is not for me, really. I would say of the musical horror that I've seen, this is, I guess some of the best, I guess, and probably the best in a lot of horror fans' minds. But I'm not really one of musical horror here. It does have a Ken's a musical horror fan, apparently.
No, I just want to say seeing Susan Sarandon in a bra is worth it. She was
Yeah,
represented in there.
I when I was reading, I did a little reading on this before, and I guess they tried to actually get her to do nude scenes in the movie, but I guess she refused. But yeah, again, if you guys are looking for some familiar faces, if you've never seen this movie, and there's some familiar faces, Tim Curry, Barry Boswick, and several others that you have seen, and acting in general, that doesn't just have to be horror, but there are some other familiar horror faces in there. You can see them then, and then you can see them now. You can compare if you want to go back and check it out. But I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought it was kind of interesting to think that we've never really seen it. And it's, again, 1975. It's just like no one's come to the forefront to do a remake of this with all these remakes that keep doing again and again. I'll say it. Yes, there was the one on Fox, but I'm just discounting that one. Yeah, Fox, you never made that one. We're not counting that. You got to put it on the big screen to count. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Chris because I'm interested in his thoughts on Rocky Horror overall and maybe what it was like if he saw it back in the day or starring in it.
Yeah, the crowd, I think it might be similar to you guys. I'm a bit older that hung out in the audio visual room at high school. They would be the ones who went to see Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's sort of the anti-establishment disco scene of the mid-'70s. The cool kids would go to the disco, the nerds, and I don't know how many of us fall into that category. I probably do, or did, still do, would have gone to the Orson Welles Theater in Cambridge, Harvard Square, where you don't have to go see the Rocky Horror Picture Show to see really strange Bostonians. As far as anything else like it, probably not, because you didn't need anything else like it. If you saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show and loved it and experienced it, you weren't looking for another movie like it. You went back to the same one, and that was part of their fame. People say, I've seen it 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. And there was usually Friday nights, a lot of times at midnight. As far as where did it go, which is another interesting question, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Orson Welles Theater stops it. And I think it's after 10, 15 years of showing it every Friday night or Saturday night at midnight. So where does it go? And I put it to you guys that could we say that the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a forerunner and an inspiration of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I could see that.
Yeah,
I
totally.
definitely could see that.
Yeah, especially with the audience participation. I mean, definitely, because you kind of have like the peanut gallery out there in the Mystery Science Theater type thing. So you're kind of like, the ones out in the audience, kind of like, just like Mystery Science Theater. So yeah, I could see that for sure. A lot of fun, just like it too.
100%.
Good. Yeah. You got to enjoy a concept which is geared to giving its audience a good time. Mainstream Hollywood doesn't give us this stuff. This had to be born on its own. There was no level of marketing from a movie company that could have gotten this reaction, which the question that we're still asking today is, how did that happen? And I think it was the nerd community, when everything was disco, everything was cool, everything was bell bottoms and disco balls. They felt at home and they had just as much fun, if not more, than the cool kids. And that's just a random thought.
Well, you can also got to think about like Tim Curry and just how brilliant he was to play Frankfurter. He was such a is such a brilliant actor, and all these different roles that he's played, from The Darkness and Legend to this. Um, he was in Home Alone, all these different movies, and he was just such. And I couldn't imagine anybody else playing that role now, because he's just immortalized it. But yeah, really good topic there, Horo.
Yeah, something different. I know it has super far away from the movie that we're going to be talking about soon, but I just thought now's the time to talk about that one. So let's get right into some news here real quick, and I'm going to take this as a news. You can take it as you want. You can actually go on Twitter right now. Somebody just, I guess, randomly asked Felicia Rose if she'd ever do Sleepaway Camp, a new one or another one. And apparently she responded, kind of giving a hint that maybe she would, or she will, or that there's something in the works. So if you're watching us live and you follow Felicia Rose, it's very easy to get to her on Twitter. Jump over there and check out that conversation. That's what she says. So maybe, I don't know if she's talking remake, it's another sequel, who knows. But that's interesting. And if you're catching us live, you get the benefits of that sort of breaking news. If anybody else catches this next week, oh well, it'll be old news by then. All right, so let's get into some other topics here. Castle Rock on Hulu is no more. They stopped that after 2 seasons. I don't have Hulu, never watched it. Seemed like an interesting concept, but I guess maybe I'll catch it one day down the line. Something that we will probably talk about down the line, and one day I'm sure, is this prequel to The Orphan. It looks like Isabel Fuhrman is going to return in her role to this movie. And, it's, I don't want to get too far into it. It's just in the news, but we can kind of debate this. At least it's good that they didn't do a remake. It's a prequel. But, now that if you've seen The Orphan, you know what a big twist is and the big jig behind that one is. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly they do here in this prequel. Another topic that's interesting here is Clive Barker has joined HBO's Hellraiser. Remember, this is going to be a TV series, and we have Hellraiser with the movie, which is going to come out, and we have the TV series, and we've talked about this when the news broke months ago. So he's going to be executive producer. So how much influence he's going to be here, I don't know. It's not really clear, what exactly he's going to do on here. The one thing he should do is get dug back in some form, some way. Whether he does that or not, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to, being an executive producer, if he'll have that power or not, or they even want to go down that road. Reportedly, Pinhead is going to be involved one way or the other, so we'll see. Nick Cage fans, he's been in a line of really weird movies, and it looks like he's got another one coming up in Willy's Wonderland, and I guess there's a teaser trailer out for that. I guess he's going to be battling animatronics or something like that. So definitely check that out for you Nick Cage fans. The remake news continues. It looks like Jordan Peele listened to our show weeks ago when I mentioned that, People Under the Stairs could be made into a remake. And apparently he listened, and apparently he's going to produce it. He's not going to direct as of now, but I guess he liked our ideas on the show, and he's interested in doing it. So we'll see what he comes up with. Something I probably forgot. I know when the news broke, I told you guys, but then we didn't talk about it much afterwards. Is the new Craft movie came out? No, I have not seen it yet, but it's on my list. I'll get to it eventually and tell you how bad it is. But you know, good or bad, it looks like they've also written a, I guess they're counting it as a third part. So maybe there'll be another Craft. So if you're looking for another reason to watch the one that just came out, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know how many people watch it. It just kind of seemed to go right under the rug there because it was so close to Halloween. I don't know. Um, One of our friends, David Howard Thornton, appears in a new teaser for The Dark Offerings. That was something that I put on Promote Horror. It's a movie shot during quarantine, and I guess that was a special surprise teaser that they wanted to throw out there, and he was the surprise there. So you got the surprise here, but I encourage you guys to go and check that out. It's got a Felicia Rose, which I mentioned at the top. She's in this movie as well, and there's some other familiar faces. And that one will be coming hopefully sometime next year. There, I guess they're still putting the final touches on that. And just real quick, The Call, which I mentioned before with Tobin Bell and Len Shay, that is now out on VOD and digital if you want to catch that. I have not caught it yet. Hopefully I get to see it. But what I did catch is Blood Vessel, which is coming on Shudder this week. I definitely recommend catching that. Also The Spell, which is out now in limited theaters on demand. I enjoyed it. Reviews are mixed. And also coming at the end of this week is Triggered. Um, I'm not going to say much about that one, but I definitely recommend that as well. And that is it for the news.
Good stuff. It seems like Felicia Rose is just in every other movie, which is great. She's an awesome, awesome actress, and I love what she puts out. But yeah, great stuff there, Horo. I look forward to seeing some of those movies. And when I heard about the People Under the Stairs, I immediately thought about the show we did not too long ago. So yeah, of course he's listening. Why wouldn't he listen? Anyway, let's get into the creature feature of the week with Chris the Creature.
I had a chance to yap a little bit with Michael Abbott on social media a little while ago, and it's a shame I hadn't had that privilege maybe a week ago because we were not given a screener for the movie, which means my questions are going to be, what are your definition of love? Um, which I am interested in because it is a fascinating question. But I got the feeling that he's the type of guy that we could hang out with each other. We could go have a Heineken every Wednesday night at Hard Times Cafe and maybe have some chili too, and talk about things that we can't talk about on air. But we'll find out very soon if that's the case. But the only thing I know about this movie is it takes place on a farm and bad things happen. So I was thinking farm. I wanted a movie close to that. So I'm sure I've got the 1972 version of the film we're going to be talking about in a little while that comes out in a couple of days. The film I'm talking about is 1972's Invasion of the Blood Farmers. Those of you who have a love and a passion for drive-in movies, those movies are about 75 minutes long. They were bloody. The acting was wonderful. And not everything in the plot really made sense. And sometimes segments of the plot looked like they weren't even fit in the movie, but, shoot them anyway because it had gratuitous nudity or violence and then just put it in. And that's what we have with Invasion of the Blood Farmers, all mixed into a very loose plot. It was directed by a guy named Ed Adlam, who directed a few movies. This one, and one, I think a year later, called Shriek of the Mutilated. You people that hung out in Blockbuster would remember the cover art for that one, and maybe you even picked it up. And it's probably about as good of a movie as Invasion of the Blood Farmers, although The Babes and Invasion of the Blood Farmers, I think, were a step above. And we'll talk about those babes very soon. But Ed Adlam, rock musician, was in a band, put out a couple records, no one bought it. I can relate. I got books that do the same thing. Made a few movies, and there is a story out there that he was touring the Universal lot several years later, And this was after his movie making days. And a friend of his is touring him around, and here comes Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg's very nice. Hey, how are you? Thanks for coming to Universal. And it says, oh, I'm so pleased to meet you. Um, I used to make movies too. And Steve Spielberg says, oh, really? Like what? And he says, Invasion of the Blood Farmers. And Spielberg just turned around and walked away at the end of the conversation. I know we've all had instances where we say something and the conversation is over. What's that expression, like a fart in church? Something like that. Well, Invasion of the Blood Farmers is, Ken, you probably recognize all these places. Rural New York. And farming community. And I guess you could say this is a European movie brought to the U.S. drive-in. Druids, pagans. I mean, they're all over Scotland, all over Wales. I mean, all over the countryside. You get 10 miles out of Liverpool and you get virgins sacrificed all the time. You get 15 miles out, you get cops burned in these wicker statues. I mean, this happens all the time over there. It must be 2,000 to 3,000 people a month are going up so it can rain and the corn will grow. It's one of the it's the main reason Brexit is happening right now, and nobody's talking about it. We can talk about it after the show. But invasion of these Druids come to this community and they take over the Whitaker farm. This is very unfortunate for the Whitakers because they get strung up and they get tubes stuck in them and they get all their blood drained out. Now, that's one thing these Druids are doing. They're stealing people's blood, and then you slowly die. Sherlock Holmes called this his most latent fear of dying was this method of dying, is having the blood sucked out of you slowly until you just cease to be alive. Well, another phenomenon is happening, and these blood farmers are doing stuff to the people where, like, you walk down the street and all of a sudden you feel pressure and you explode. And this one farmer stumbles into a bar, explodes, and dies. Not a good thing. And a scientist, Dr. Roy Anderson, gets a hold of test sample of the blood, and he figures out why the guy exploded, because it's a little tiny sample of blood, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then it's overflowing, and then it's sort of taking over the lab. The blood's reproducing. And so if they do whatever they do to you, you're just going to explode. Literally. I mean, I think figuratively, we can all understand that. And so now, Dr. Roy Anderson, he's annoying. He's got a beautiful daughter played by Tana Hunter, Jenny. And you just know that Jenny's going to be on the altar at the end of the movie. Will she be saved or won't she be saved? But, a nubile blonde in a movie about Druids, I mean, this isn't quite, what's her face? The babe in Wicker Man. Britt Eklund. Not quite Britt Eklund, but hey, a drive-in version of her. And her fiance, Don, handsome guy, clueless. Every time they make out, Dr. Roy calls Dan to go look at a blood sample. And her dog gets killed, and she's crying throughout the whole movie. Very annoying, but she's good looking, so we put up with it. Meanwhile, people are being killed. Now, this is interesting. It doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, because it's not like they're being killed and their blood taken, or they're being killed and hung up for satanic religious rites, which if you go to Scotland and Wales, I mean, you can't get off an exit without seeing 4 or 5 of them just on the exit ramp. Happens. Just go. Try. The roundabouts they have, yeah. You don't want to go through those. So the Jenny has no clue what's going on, because her dad and her fiance keep telling her to go upstairs and go to sleep, probably because she's crying a lot. This is the old woman, the 90-year-old at Thanksgiving, who's crying the whole time, and you're just trying to get her to take a nap. Well, Jenny is a young woman. She's like 20, 25. She's nubile. She's blonde, and she's just crying because her dog got killed or whatever reason. She wants to go see the Whitakers, but they've been blood drained, so nothing's going right for her. And so the blood farmers, turns out they're into the community. There's some very illustrious professors who are secretly members of their cult. And they are looking for the right donor, right blood donor. You know who that's going to be. There's no surprise here. It's going to be Jenny. And you know why they need Jenny? Because there's a babe, looks kind of like Jenny, in a glass coffin. And that's Queen Unhorrid, played by, what is her name? Fleming, Cynthia Fleming. Oh, these actors and actresses, what else have they done? Nothing. Nothing. You know how much they got paid? 6-pack of an alcoholic beverage. That's what they got paid. They did this for love, and it shows. And so the Druids are going to make a move for Jenny. And it's going to be easy because her dad is playing around with blood samples. Her fiance is doing the same thing. They keep telling her to take a nap. So she's always in the bedroom all alone, sleeping. And then she wants to go out in the woods and look for dogs and stuff. So it's just a question of when they're going to grab her. But they need to grab her, and they need to get her blood into Queen Unhorrid, so Queen Unhorrid can come back to life. And we're hoping she does, because you're looking through this glass coffin. She's a very good looking lady. I mean, England is not known for good looking queens. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Now, that doesn't say they're bad queens, but we just assume hear them on the radio than watch them on TV. Let's just say that. So there's going to be a lot of blood. 8.5 bottles of stage blood was used in this movie. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a lot. I don't know if a stage blood bottle is this big or that big, but I assume that's a lot. And this is before its time. The cute dog does get killed horribly. That's a recent phenomenon with this cute dog, they're dead. Where it used to be, you have a cute dog and you think they're dead, and then they come running back at the end. And I think Night of the Creeps ended that with a little play on that. So Invasion of the Blood Farmers, it is a spirited movie. Not all of it makes sense, but it doesn't have to. Does anything in a pagan cult make a whole lot of sense? Like, we need rain for the crops. You can't get a job at the frozen yogurt place like everyone else does when it doesn't rain? I don't know. I mean, they're not Amish people. They mingle with the community, you know. Anyway, enough social commentary on pagan and Druid cults, which are all over Scotland, all over Wales. UK is teeming with them. And so don't let your virgin daughters roam the countryside alone. But that is Invasion of the Blood Farmers from 1972.
Did you just say something about the Amish? We need them to listen too. Every week, Chris, you throw a name out there, whether it's Australia or whatever. Yeah. Now we just lost our Amish listeners. Thank you.
I'll give this to the Amish. I mean, they're not sacrificing virgins, and that's good. And the other thing is when it doesn't rain and the crops don't grow, they sell you cookies. And pagans can do that. They can just go buy Oreos and just sell them under a different name. Very easy. I mean, what's the big deal if it doesn't rain and the crops doesn't grow? Maybe it was 300 years ago, but there's no excuse for it now.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Michael Abbott from The Dark and the Wicked. Sit tight, everybody.